It seems long, but it won't last forever.
Hello everybody, I was tagged in a tag, which was really lovely. So thank you, Olly. This is, so Olly from Olly tagged me, and this is the Canterbury Tales Tag. And the tag was initially created by AJ Dunn, so massive thanks to AJ Dunn for creating the tag, and obviously, as I said, to Olly for tagging me in the video. So I know Steve Donahue was a bit dismayed that people hadn't read the Canterbury Tales that were doing this tag, and I haven't read the Canterbury Tales, but I've read Hyperion. Is that the same? But thing is, in my school, I was in one of the 2 top sets for English, which is lovely, and one of the sets studied Shakespeare, and the other set studied Chaucer. And I was in the Shakespeare set, which is quite nice because I do like Shakespeare. So I remember at the time we did quite a lot of Macbeth, which is a very cool play. And since then, I've grown to love Hamlet as well, and a few others. But basically, that was probably the best chance that I would have had to study Chaucer. So it didn't happen, and not massively keen at the minute. But hey, persuade me. Persuade me. Go on, write in a comment, persuade me. Anyway, these are 25 questions with a couple of tags at the end. 25 questions is a lot of questions. I've got a massive pile of books that are my responses to the questions. And you might have seen that big pile of books on the thumbnail for this video. So I've got a load of stuff here, which I've got to read out for the questions, because the prompts are actually quite involved anyway, regardless of the answers. Where's the number 1? Is there another one? This is number 1. The host is large, loud and merry. Recommend a book that's over 800 pages that you would recommend to read. So, I recommend The Essential Harlan Ellison. I am going to talk about Harlan Ellison in greater detail soon. He's one of the most important writers in my life, and I've only superficially mentioned him, if at all, so far. I may have mentioned him before, but I will be mentioning him when I do my 10 short stories as well. But yeah, I mean, the man was genius. So this is the 35-year retrospective, The Essential Ellison, and if you're feeling really brave, there is the ~50-year retrospective. So one of that, I know that one is 1,200 pages long. 1,200 pages. That is slightly shorter, but only a little bit shorter. They just added a few more when they filled in those 15 years. So yeah, Harlan Ellison is definitely an author worth reading. Some of his stories are incredible, and the ones that aren't incredible are very charismatic. So yeah, if you're curious about the man who wrote "Repent, Harlequin said the TikTok man," or "I have no mouth and I must scream," or "A Boy and His Dog," or "Crazy as a Soup Sandwich," what a great phrase, or the Deathbird stories, or Jeff T is 5, or Harlan Ellison. That's one there. I am going to do my top 5 or top 10, probably top 5 Harlan Ellison books. 5? Mate, I can't remember. But anyway, I'm planning that as well at some point. He's an amazing author. Check out Harlan Ellison. Number 2. The Knight stands for fighting, war and bravery. Recommend a book with a courageous main character. Right, I'm going with a book that I'm going to talk about in more detail in a Claire North video I'm doing. And this is The Sudden Appearance of Hope. I really, really like this book. And the main character is Hope Arden, and she has got a problem, major problem, and that's that as soon as she leaves somebody's sight, they've forgotten who she is, and she ends up getting involved in a plot to topple a huge company that's trying to manipulate everybody, and she discovers this, and she's kind of going up against him on her own. It's a very cool story with a really good conceit at the centre of it. And Claire North's always worth reading, I think, but this is a really awesome book. Quite underrated, I think. So, yeah. The Sudden Appearance of Hope. My vote for a courageous character by Claire North. Number 3. Wife of Bath stands for marriage, sex and arguing. Can you recommend a book with a strong female character? Yes. This is not a massive surprise or obscure, but Northern Lights, Philip Pullman. So Lyra is an awesome main character, and this book is so brilliant. It's definitely worth reading if you haven't read it yet. And Lyra is an awesome main character for the story to hang on. And Lyra's got great characterization in this, and really pulls the story along. And you do believe in what she's doing. You do root for her, and it's right for all the right reasons. Question 4. The Pardoner is all about ambiguity. Tell us about your favourite queer characters. And what I'm doing here with this question is there are queer characters in this, but it's more about the overall tone of the book, and it covers so many different areas that are full of ambiguity or potential prejudice, potential conflict. And with this book and with this author, it's just written in a way that gives us hope for a future without that kind of thing, or certainly with a much more tolerant response to that kind of thing. And that is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. So it gets talked about a lot on BookTube for all the right reasons. It's a fantastic book, but what's fantastic about it, besides the general storytelling, it's written so well, but it covers so many themes in a interesting, positive, open, accepting, tolerant kind of way. It's not even just tolerant way, in a celebratory way, really. So yeah, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet I'm using for that response, because it's the best book I've read on those themes. Question number 5. The Miller is bold, blasphemous, and overturns conventions. Favourite naughty character? Okay, so for that one, I'm picking Wednesday and Pugsley Adams. I found it difficult to answer the question of naughty characters, but they're clearly very naughty because they do things like, it's got Morticia saying, "Don't come whining to me, just go and poison him back." Dark humour, and clearly poisoning your brother would be naughty. Pugsley stealing signs that you probably shouldn't steal. That's naughty. And look at how Pugsley and Wednesday are treating their dolls. That's naughty. But clearly Gomez and Morticia did not consider that naughty. But in conventional senses, for most families, that would be naughty. Number 6. The Priest is modest, quiet and compassionate. A book you don't hear much about on BookTube. Alright, I never hear anybody talk about this, and that's The Bus, Paul Kirshner. So, this is one of my favourite books, one of my treasured possessions, because it's also one of my oldest books I've ever had, and I love this. So if you are into cartoonists, then have a look at The Bus by Paul Kirshner. Try and get hold of it, because it is absolutely brilliant. Love it, really love it. I mean, it's just odd, some of it. Yeah, I'll show you this one. So, cartoons full of imagination. Such a brilliant book. Initially, these cartoons were in Heavy Metal, the magazine Heavy Metal, and then they released them all separately. I'll just show you one more. Kind of mind-bending. can look at these all day. Okay, I can't remember the prompt for this because I haven't written it properly, but number 7 is pick a book, recommend a book with an unconventional character. So, for that, I have chosen a Robert Sheckley book. He's actually going to come up a few times. The Alchemical Marriage of Alistair Compton. This book is a fantastic book, very funny book. It's set in the future where schizophrenics have been split into their separate personalities with different bodies. And Alistair Compton realises he's not quite mentally healthy, and he needs to sort out, and basically needs to reconnect with his other personalities, and he goes on a mission to realign his personalities into his body. And it's very funny because they're happy where they are. They don't want to be realigned with his body. So it's a cool book. That's Robert Sheckley. So the Alchemical Marriage of Alistair Compton, an unconventional character because he's split off into different bodies and he's trying to get them back. Number 8 was have you read the Bible or the Torah or the Quran? I think. Yes. I have read a fair bit of the Bible because when I was younger, I ended up getting involved in a Christian group, and that lasted a little while, and then I got more sort of independent thought that took me away from that after when I got to about sort of 15, and now I'm quite firm in my belief that God is invented by man, and the sacred books are written as they are, quite clearly through a lack of knowledge of science and things like that. So they served their function at the time and were written, certainly the Bible was written in a very peculiar way, and all those things I think need to be considered when you're reading it. But when I was very young, I was reading it without that sort of thing, with no filter, just taking it all in, and I don't think that's necessarily very healthy. So yeah, I have read a fair bit of the Bible from that sort of thing, but I haven't read any of the Quran. I am curious to read that. I might read that at some point. And the Torah I haven't read or even been in contact with. I haven't seen that sort of thing around. I saw a booktuber do this tag and said that they'd read. It was a booktuber I've just discovered. Can't remember his name. Hello, whoever you are. You just said that you'd read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I'm kind of curious to read that as well. I am absolutely into philosophy, and you may have seen that in some of the non-fiction stuff I've talked about in the past. And I do have an interest in theology, but not to the extent where I want to read analyse sacred books to death. But I am interested in the philosophy behind that and the positives and negatives that go with that. So that's my answer to that one. Number 9, the summoner is lecherous and tries to sound more educated than he is. Tell us about a book that sounds better than it is. Okay. This is a spoiler for the next video. On the 14th of this month, there's a video that's scheduled to come out that I've already done. It's there waiting to go out on the 14th. I left a few days so I can kind of spread them out a bit. And it's my review of this, which was my first March Mystery Madness book. And I was disappointed. So the cover's awesome. It's Stephen King. The other 2 books I read in the series I thought were brilliant. But yeah, I was disappointed. So have a look at the review when you see it. But that's my choice for that because I thought everything about this would be, this is going to be good. It was all right, but it wasn't that great. Number 10. The parson is poor but rich in thought and deeds. Recommend a book that gave you more than you expected. Okay. For that one, I am choosing. Where is it? The Stars Now Unclaimed by Drew Williams. So I really like this. This is part of a trilogy as well, and I really liked the other 2 books as well. And this was one that I've never heard anybody talk about at all. So no friends have talked about it. No one I know, no shop has raved about it in their little bits of like staff recommendations. I haven't seen a lot talked about it in reviews on Goodreads or whatever. And I definitely haven't seen booktubers talk about it. But I really enjoyed it. It's quite light-hearted, but not in a way that's really badly written or anything. It's a lot of fun. It's a space opera kind of thing with sort of a big concept at the centre of it, and really good characterization, really good characters that I really liked, and it's got a really good conclusion that sets up the next couple of books, and I just really liked it. So yeah, really good characters, an AI character that is really awesome, and the main character you really kind of get involved with. About 50 pages in, there's a really cool set piece, like action set piece, that is really cool to read. It's just really good. So Stars Now Unclaimed, I had heard nothing about it, found it in a shop, thought, oh, that looks interesting, bought it, and really liked it. So there we go. 11. The Squire stands for love, beauty, and courting. So books that you fell in love with when you were young. Okay. So I'm looking forward to rereading these so that I can talk about them in more detail. But in the meantime, the Belgariad. So these are 4 of the 5 books of the Belgariad. I have the 5th one as well upstairs in the loft, but these were the ones I wanted to quickly grab for this video. So the first one is Pawn of Prophecy, and then you've got the Queen of Sorcery, then the Magician's Gambit, and then Castle of Wizardry is the 4th one, and then the 5th one is Enchanter's Endgame. I absolutely loved these books when I was younger, and yeah, me and my mates read them, and it's one of those things as well where I did read Lord of the Rings first when I was 15, I remember that, and these came shortly after that, and I really loved them because they're a bit more sort of easier on the eye, I guess. I mean, Tolkien does put some stuff in there because he was building a whole world and he was creating a language with the Elvish language and all those kind of things. There's some stuff in there a little bit more functional, which means that, you know, sometimes it can be a bit of a slog, but I do love those books, don't get me wrong, and these are just a lot of fun. So the Belgariad, if you haven't read these, it's old style fantasy, but I've got no doubt the Belgariad would have had an influence on some of the modern fantasy writers that we love today. Yeah. 12. The clerk says little, but his words are wise and virtuous. A short book that made you a better person. Right, number 12. That is why I was looking for... I couldn't find it. That was why I was looking for The Killing Joke. So I couldn't find The Killing Joke. It's a short book that really did change me, but I'm gonna use this one to say the same thing. Is this still regarded as short? It's quite short. It's certainly a short read because of the nature of the fact it's a graphic novel. But I'll tell you why I'm saying that this book changed me. So I've seen a few booktubers say it's difficult to answer that question about them being changed by a book. And this changed my opinion about graphic novels and comics. So it's not unusual because that was the big thing about people like Alan Moore, and Frank Miller. These are people that brought a new aesthetic to graphic novels and comics and made them more adult and darker and much more brought into this sort of more modern era of graphic novels. And this was the first one I read like that. Sorry, The Killing Joke was possibly... No, this was read first, actually. So I thought I'd pick The Killing Joke because it was shorter, but this was read beforehand. I read this in its shorter 12-part comic series first, and then I've got the trade paperback that where all the 12 parts are put together. So I did read this initially, and it really did make me think I want to read more of this stuff because it's really brilliantly written, very intelligent and interesting and political and serious and important. So V for Vendetta, Alan Moore, I'm throwing in there partly because I can't find The Killing Joke. It's around somewhere. That was an awesome read and really did make me think, wow, some of this stuff can be phenomenal. So 2 possible Alan Moore books that are being provided for that question, that prompt. Number 13. Man of Law upholds justice and knows the law by heart. A book you couldn't imagine rereading. Okay. A book I couldn't imagine rereading. What did I choose for that? Oh, yeah. Okay. Where's the other one? That one. Okay, so basically, I've kept some books that I used for my degree because I don't really want to get rid of them without selling them, and I had like a couple of failed attempts to sell them. I should just give them away really, as I've got them, and I'm not going to reread them, but they're really proper heavy philosophical, political books. There's Spectrum by Perry Anderson, which was a great book to quote from my history essays, and Philosophy and Social Hope by Richard Rorty, which was recommended by someone like a regular customer when I worked in Blackwell's when I was doing my degree. And it was a great one to quote from because it's a great analysis of philosophy within the context of radical politics. So these are great books, but I'm not likely to reread them. So yeah, I've got a few books like that. So yeah, that's my answer to that. The Manciple provides the food, so recommend a series that is good from first book to last. Okay, so this is a very loose definition of a series. It is a series of books, but they're not interconnected. They're books that you can read separately, but every book I've read in this series I think is amazing. And this is Ursula K. Le Guin's Penis Cycle. So I've got I've got about 7 or 8 of the books now actually. So I've got about 8 of the books so far. I'm just picking 2 here because it gives you a sense of what they are. You've probably heard of Left Hand of Darkness. I have done a video on Ursula K. Le Guin, so if you want to have a look at that, that's cool. But yeah, every book I've read by her has been brilliant. So I imagine when I get to the end of the series, which is quite a few books, I'm sure I like all of them. Who knows? But yeah, that's what I'm picking for that. The Merchant deals with furs and cloth, and it's powerful and wealthy. Recommend a book with a powerful message or a theme. Okay, so I'm going it. Oh no, that's not. Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm going to choose 2 books for this. 2 different messages, but I think 2 very important messages. So Noam Chomsky is a really important man. He writes really important books, and when you see interviews with him, they're brilliant insights into the way the world works. Definitely worth watching Noam Chomsky if you don't know. Most people of a liberal mind know who Noam Chomsky is, and would probably gravitate to his thoughts if they were wanting more information about some current affairs thing that's happening. This is a great book about the media. That's one of his most famous books, Manufacturing Consent. Really, really good book about how mass media works and how we're duped, and how we have very little power sometimes to counteract this kind of cultural domination. So yeah, Noam Chomsky, Manufacturing Consent. And the other thing I was going to pick for this, because I think it's a very important message, and that's Edward Valance's book called A Radical History of Britain. So what is really good about this book, and presumably I think it's the reason why he wrote the book, is it gets overlooked that there's a British tradition of protest, change, unrest, or not revolution, but something a lot more subtle that means that the radicals of the past have progressed society in Britain through the centuries in a way that kind of gets overlooked in history lessons in school, gets overlooked in general, I think. And, you know, if you go right back to the peasants' revolts that happened after the Black Death, you've got really radical demands being made that still feel radical now. They're actually beyond the system we live in now, and that was many, many centuries ago. And you've got all the things that were happening in the 1640s, and you've got loads of other things like the Rebecca riots and Captain Swing, all that kind of stuff. Obviously the tales of Robin Hood, which do come from stories that are based on things that happened. There's a debate about whether he existed or not, but that kind of thing. There's all sorts of things that are in our history that It's fascinating, and it's a really good, important book to look at for that kind of context. Part of our history that gets overlooked because people seem to be obsessed with either kings and queens or World War II. So, yeah, this is a really good one for that kind of message about how important that side of our history is. Number 16. The shipman is a wine-stealing rascal. Tell us about a side character that steals a spotlight. Okay, this is another appearance by Robert Sheckley. So I don't mind mentioning him a few times because nobody else ever talks about him. And this is a book called Damocles, which is a funny book. It's quite an absurd, ridiculous book. And there is a moment in this book where Damocles' servant, this girl that's acting as his servant, she realises in the book as a character that she hasn't got much to do. She kind of realises, becomes self-aware, and realises she's only got a couple of pages, and she's not happy about that. So she increases her role in the book by changing what she's supposed to do in the story. Made me giggle when I read it. It's very typical Robert Sheckley to do that, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, Damocles, it's a good laugh. Robert Sheckley is always a good laugh. Number 17, The Physician. If that is what that says, my writing is terrible. I wrote this very quickly while I was watching the video that Olly did. The Physician knows what ails you and can kill you. A book that you consider a comfort read. Right, this is a little bit different, a little bit odd. And I apologise if it doesn't make any sense, but when I need comfort, sometimes I need cynicism, I need despair, existentialism, the world is crap, people are horrible, there's no point. That, weirdly, is a comfort, because sometimes, because I've got this sort of yin and yang battle all the time between what I would regard to be very positive socialist hope about people being nice to each other, that kind of competes a lot with this sort of despair when things are rotten, and you just think, if people are like that, how the hell are people going to be that positive? And that kind of, that's always a battle in my head. And sometimes if I need a comfort because something as proved to go into that, people are just nasty kind of thing, then there's a comfort sometimes to read people saying that, and it kind of, I don't know, there's something about that. And the guy that's kind of the king of cynicism, really, the guy that I have got so many books by him. If I see a book by him, I buy it, and I am going to do something on him. I don't know how to do his work justice in a video because he's a very complicated character. But Charles Bukowski. So Charles Bukowski has written many novels, short stories, poems. And, you know, I could be picking any of his books to talk about. I mean, you know, you get so alone at times, it just makes sense. Some of these titles sum up the comfort that you might get from reading his stuff. Where's the... oh, yeah. Love is a Dog from Hell. I've got so many of his books, but I do love his writing. But to be fair, I recently reread Women, one of the few novels he wrote, and I found that quite hard work. But I just don't think I was in the mood for it. So sometimes, clearly, it's not a comfort because he wasn't particularly... He didn't filter his writing at all, and some of it's just really horrible to read. But there we are. That's my genuine response to comfort reading. Sometimes I'll go into his poems and things like that, and his poems are very dark and paint a very negative depiction of human thought and feeling and emotion and carelessness, selfishness, lack of insight. All those things are in his poems. And sometimes it just, I don't know, it's reassuring to see that written beautifully, that actually people are shit. So, yeah, there we go. Number 18. The Franklin is not a noble, but a free man. Recommend a book about freedom. Okay, they're a bit more positive. So, again, I do feel very passionately about change, about people talking to each other, about people developing their knowledge about people, understanding their empathy with people, and about the fact that this has happened historically through the centuries, and we have changed. We just change slowly. And I do love reading about people that have tried to make a change. And as I'm a musician and a songwriter, I love reading about protest songs. So this is my response to the book about freedom. And clearly, you can't protest unless you've got the freedom to protest. And most protest songs are about freedom and creating freedom, sustaining freedom, maintaining freedom, improving freedom. And this is a really good book. And a shout out to my friend Louise, who bought me this as a present. And yeah, it's just a really cool book. 33 revolutions per minute, and it takes 33 different songs from the protest song canon and discusses them in the book. It's a really good book. Definitely recommend this. Okay. The Reeve, number 19. The Reeve is believable on the outside, but lies on the inside. On the outside. What have I just written? What book wasn't as good as the blurb suggested? I was disappointed by this one. Permafrost by Alistair Reynolds. So this is the 4th novel I've read by him, but the other 3 are a trilogy. And yeah, I haven't read Revelation Space yet, or any of the sort of the big ones like that. But I've read the Revenger trilogy, and I've never read this one. And this was okay, but it wasn't quite as good as I thought it was going to be from his reputation and reading the back. It was all right. It was okay. It's fine, but not amazing. Okay, number 20 is The Plowman is Good-Hearted and Faithful, a book that you read over and over again. All right, it's another appearance by Robert Sheckley, and I've read this book so many times. I've got about 4 copies of this book. It's Mind Swap by Robert Sheckley. I think it's very funny. I love the way it's written, and I've got every book I've ever seen by him. I've got lots of these books. If I find it, I'll buy it. Tell me in the comments below if that's really ridiculous, because am I stopping someone else from owning this if I buy an extra copy just so I've got another copy? Why am I doing that? Why am I doing that? Okay, 21. Nearly at the end. This is a long video. Apologies. The Guildsmen, 5 men who act as a unit and stand for brotherhood. So a book with a strong ensemble. So I'm well twisting the definition of this now. So this should be an ensemble of characters, right? That is how you should read that, clearly. But I thought it might be nice to use that as an opportunity to talk about the cartoonists of the New Yorker. So the New Yorker is a magazine in America, in New York, as my American friends will agree, that has got legendary status for all sorts of things, but one of the big things is the cartoons of the New Yorker. This is an amazing book. It's a fantastic book. It tells you it's the complete cartoons of the New Yorker. It's got a great history of it, and there are lots of examples in there. Just to quickly do this, you can see there's lots of examples. And the reason why it's the complete cartoons is because there is a CD-ROM, DVD? It's DVD. Is it DVD? So either a DVD or a CD-ROM. Must be a CD-ROM. Anyway, with every cartoon from the New Yorker on it. So this is such an important book for me, because as I've said in previous videos, I collect my favourite cartoonists. I've got a big collection of cartoonist books, and this has got many of my favourites in there. Charles Adams is in there a lot, and Peter Arno, and all sorts of different people. So yeah, I love this book, and it's a great ensemble of cartoonists in this book. Talk about stretching the definition of the question. 22. The cook makes the food that feeds you. So a book that feeds your soul. All right, I'm going to take this as a thematic thing. So I'm using the idea that I feel like my soul is fed from books about the way primates think and primate cognition, the way that the big apes and orangutans, chimpanzees, gorillas, all these different primates act. These books, Reaching into Thought. I think Reaching into Thought is my favourite. I could just choose that, but I wanted to mention Jane Goodall again. And that one's a really good one. Primate Cognition. That's a really good one as well. But yeah, Reaching into Thought is such a brilliant book. The Minds of the Great Apes. That feeds my soul, because I do very passionately believe we should be treating the other creatures on the earth better, and if we understood and empathised with them, that would happen. Possibly. The number 23, The Yeoman Serves You. A book that serves its purpose, wasn't great, but served its purpose. All right. I'm going to pick this one, which it is a really good book, but I'm translating the question as something that's a little bit more functional. So it served its purpose. So the purpose behind this book was to get you to read music better, and to give you tips about how to read music, and to basically teach you how to read music. And this is a good book for doing that. So if you are interested in learning how to read music, this is a good book for that. The right way to read music. I've read tons of different books on this, and it's a very clear, way of learning how to read music. 24. The Second Nun talks about the saint's life in her tale. A book you talk about and praise often. So a book you go on about a lot. Well, clearly, I've talked about Richard Matheson and I Am Legend a fair bit. I'm going to do it again soon, because I'm going to talk about The Twilight Zone soon. So I'll talk about Richard Matheson again. So yeah, I love this book so much. And I know I've done one video of him, but I know I've mentioned these kind of things before. So yeah, I Am Legend. Amazing book. 25. Nuns Priest is witty and doesn't take himself seriously. So recommend a book with a funny main character. So I didn't realise I was going to enjoy this book as much as I did. I'd already seen the film, but it turns out the way it's written is fantastic, and the main character is genuinely funny, and that's The Martian by Andy Weir. I really loved this, and it took me by surprise. So I'm looking forward to reading the latest one soon. I kind of think it was called. Anyway, I haven't got it yet, and obviously I've seen loads and loads of reviews of it. But I love this book. It's awesome and very funny principal character. So that's it. That's my response. Very long response. There's 26 questions. I need to tag people for the 26th question. So if you're watching this, Mike, Fit to be Read. You may have done this already. Please do this, because I'd love to see what your response is. Fit to be Read, Mike. And if Becky M is watching this, I'll tag her as well. I watch her channel a lot, but I don't know, she probably doesn't watch mine. But Becky M, if you're watching this, I'd like to see your response as well. It's a very long video with tons of books, and sometimes I have to put these books away now. See you on the other side. Thanks a lot. Bye. Picture of what it's like to